Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Well, a very warm welcome to this week's Racing Post football postcast. Hopefully you're playing up winnings from Cheltenham, and we've assembled a crack team of experts to tackle this weekend's football. We've got Champions League chat, Premier League chat, FA Cup chat. Joining me in the studio, Liam Flynn, Dan Childs from the Racing Post. We've also got Emmett on the line from Paddy Power. Emmett, how are you?
Not too bad at all.
How's the book looking after last night's Champions League action? We'll dive straight into that. Half the field are English clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fairly bleak night for all bookmakers because both teams scored over 2.5 goals, over 3.5 goals clicked in both games. Both the favourites won. A lot of the favourites won in the Championship, League One, etc. as well. So it was a pretty bad night overall.
Right, we'll get the violin out for you shortly then. Dan, what have we made of the action so far this week?
I thought Liverpool were very impressive. I mean, without playing their best scintillating football, just what struck me was how comfortable they were for most of that game, and just Bayern really didn't play at any kind of pace that could trouble Liverpool, and they always looked, I thought, a bigger threat going forward, and especially when Bayern then had to push forward, they just picked them off comfortably. And I just think they're emerging now, Liverpool, as a big contender again for this Champions League. Obviously reached the final last year. Now they've added Virgil van Dijk as well to really stiffen that defence up, and I think they're going to take some stopping. Not
to poo-poo that too much, but Where do we rate Bayern at the moment?
Yeah, I would agree. You've got to factor in that Bayern are a fading force at the moment. That's very true. But I look at Liverpool in the elite games. I mean, the two very tight games against Manchester City in the league. Only 1 point separating them after 30 games in the Premier League, and you know they're around double the price at the moment of Manchester City in the outright market. So I would just suggest that's a little bit too big, and maybe Barcelona of the other market leaders, I think, could be a decent price as well. I just think that the fact that they're 7 points clear in La Liga, they won't have to focus maybe quite as much on their domestic games, and that could leave them free then to really concentrate on the Champions League.
And Liam, what did you make of Liverpool's foot? It was beautiful to see Mane send Neuer into the crowd for a hot dog for the first goal.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic, wasn't it? It was a great performance from them. I think it just again highlights that sort of golfing class between the Premier League and the Bundesliga now that we're seeing a real changing of the guard, if you like. I mean, most notably defensively, I think across those 3 games we saw from the English clubs, the German sides only scored 3 combined, Schalke getting 2 of them in the first leg against Manchester City. So yeah, for me, I think that's the thing we can take away from those last 16 set of fixtures. Looking elsewhere though, I think obviously we've got 4 English sides, so you can't ignore them, but right from the very beginning of the tournament and even going into last 16, I was looking at Barcelona. I still would fancy them as a team to go on to win the Champions League. I just think for all their defensive vulnerabilities away, they can just absolutely blow teams away at the new camp. They've, like Dan said, they're not particularly stretched domestically. Obviously, got the Copa del Rey final, and they've got quite a comfortable cushion in La Liga. And I think now they've come into that point where they've just got a good blend of youth and experience in that team. The likes of Samuel Umtiti and Ousmane Dembele kind of coming into their own at the same time. We've got obviously, Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, Gerard Piqué have been there and done it all before. So for me, they'd still be the side that I would expect to go on to win this Champions League. But really interesting to see how the draw will unfold tomorrow, because we could get a slight shift depending on where the big guns are in that draw.
Now anyone can be drawn against anyone now. All that rubbish about.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
And I think that's with a draw. I mean, if for example you had a situation where those 4 big hitters drew each other in the draw, all of a sudden then there will be some value. There could be some value then in a few of the real outsiders, because there'll be a much better chance of them getting a pathway to a final where anything can happen. So maybe the betting is a little bit lopsided, and like an Ajax, I think around 25-1, who are capable of showing they can play well against a couple of the big guns. Maybe a little bit overpriced.
Well, Emmett O'Keefe is on the line from Paddy Power. Can you give us a full show of the 8 teams left in? I will dig you out slightly though, and so there's not a lot of black type around Paddy Power at the head of the betting. You sort of duck in a few of the big guns.
Absolutely, yeah. There's kind of the most of our liabilities are held up in the big guns at this stage of the season. So we've Man City 5-2, Barcelona 7-2, Juventus 7-2, Liverpool 9-2, Man United 10-1, Spurs 16-1, Ajax 25s, and Porto 80s.
And as the lads rightly mentioned, the draw is tomorrow, Friday. If you was to have a bet now, Emmett, where would you be putting your money?
I tend to agree with Liam. I'd go with Barcelona. I think if Barcelona played Man City, say in the quarterfinals over 2 legs, and they got odds against on Barcelona, I'd be happy to back them. I think they should be the same price, slightly shorter than City. Just their depth in attack, I think, is unparalleled throughout Europe. When Usman Dembele was one of the most expensive players ever purchased, coming off the bench. Malcolm's actually improved in form as the season's gone on, coming off the bench as well. And Lionel Messi's playing as well as he ever has, despite possibly losing maybe a yard of pace. So I think they'll be extremely hard team to stop.
And lads, I'll throw that to you, Liam. If you was going to place a bet now, I know you've already got Barcelona on side, but do you think there's any value anywhere to be had?
I would say Ajax, like Dan said. I mean, it depends how the draw unfolds, obviously, but the way they went to Santiago Bernabeu, they're absolutely dominant. The way they approached that game, I think, because they've kept that young group together. The likes of Kasper Dolberg, David Neres, and then they got Dusan Tadic, who was, I think, L'Equipe or something gave him a 10 out of 10 performance for that game against Real Madrid. He was just scintillating, and because they've got such little expectation on them with the big guns out there, I think they could give any team a real struggle. Say if they came up against Manchester United or a Tottenham, I think I would fancy them to cause some problems, especially in Amsterdam.
And Dan, you already give a mention to Ajax.
Yeah, I'd agree with Emmett. I'd rank Barcelona alongside City in their chances of winning it. So that makes them a little bit of value. Barcelona, Liverpool, I think I would give them a slightly better chance than Juve, and they're a bigger price at the moment. So I'd say they're a little bit overpriced. I'd say of the outsiders, the real worst value I'd say is Man United. I don't see why they are less than half the price of Ajax and shorter than Spurs. Looking at that team, players that are going to take a game by the scruff of the neck against the real big guns, I don't see too many, and I think it was a real freak that they got past PSG. Everything had to go their way really in that second leg there, and that's a PSG side without Cavani, without Neymar. I don't think they're going to go much further when they run into a big gun.
So we've got half the field, the English clubs, but we still feel that we're up against it.
Yeah. The one thing on that, the English. We've got 4 there. It could easily have been 2 there, couldn't it? I mean, yeah. Spurs, could come back from nowhere to get out of the group. Man United, as I've mentioned, it was a bit of a miracle that they got through that tie in the end. So you kind of don't want to get too carried away on the.
We're not dominating.
No. I'd hold on a little bit there. You've still got Juventus and Barcelona. Got a fantastic chance of winning it. So I'd hold off on patting ourselves on the back too much at the moment.
The last time that there were 4 English clubs in the quarterfinals, Barcelona went on to win the Champions League. So you never know. I mean, it's a positive having those 4 teams in there, and I think on their day, all 4 of them are capable of going there and winning the Champions League. And in a final, obviously, it's just a one-off game; anything can happen. But we're not there yet. I wouldn't say.
Emmett, have you got any specials on sort of the winning side? What country they come from, anything like that, or do we have to wait after the draw?
No, it's nationality winner up, so it's England 4-6, Spain 7-2, Italy 7-2, the Netherlands 22-1, and Portugal 75-1.
So we're odds on purely on the numbers game, Dan, by the sounds of it. Right, let's move on then. Well, obviously we've called this on the Thursday, Europa League this evening. Anything catch the eye tonight, gents? You're going to look a genius in a day or two when this goes out, or a bit silly?
Well, I think Arsenal obviously have got a big deficit to overturn against Rennes, but Unai Emery has got a phenomenal record in this competition. He's won it 3 times. I think Arsenal's biggest concern, would be conceding at the Emirates, because they concede early. Obviously that makes it a very big mountain to climb, but they can take confidence from Manchester United results. So I could see Arsenal qualifying, but we'll wait and see.
Dan, anything catch your eye?
I think Eintracht Frankfurt, a shade of odds on, might get past Inter. Inter got a 0-0 draw in the first leg in Germany, but they're missing. Icardi's still out injured with a knee injury. Martinez, who's been replacing him at number 9, he's suspended. So they've got a few issues there up front, and Eintracht Frankfurt actually dominated a lot of the first match, forced. a lot of good saves from Inter's keeper. So I think Eintracht might just get the result to get through there.
So we want to get them on side tonight to qualify, to win the match?
Qualify, yeah. I think they're a shade of odds on to qualify. I think that's a reasonable bet.
What about yourself, Emmett? Do give us a price on Eintracht and for Frankfurt and Arsenal both to qualify, and maybe something from yourself.
Yeah, no, we're currently Arsenal are 3-4 to qualify, with Rennes 19-20. On the match price, Arsenal 2-9, the draw 5-1, and Rennes 9-1, and then Inter are 19. It's the same price actually. Inter 19-20 and Eintracht Frankfurt are 3-4 to qualify. I tend to agree with Liam. I really fancy Arsenal to qualify. They're just simply a different team at home rather than away from home. In the Premier League this year, they're 9th in the away league table, behind Watford, Wolves and Palace, whereas they're 3rd on the home league table, level with Liverpool. And I think Rennes really struggled to keep them out. Before Socrates was sent off, Arsenal created plenty of chances, and I think they'll really. I expect them to press Rennes early, and I can see them going to score a couple of goals in the first half.
Wonderful, excellent stuff. Right, well, we'll head for a break, and then we'll tackle this weekend's Premier League action.
Right, 10 seconds to promote Paddy Power Games. Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games. Advertising. It's easy when you know how. Paddy Power. Enough of the nonsense. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this week's Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark from the Racing Post, joined by colleagues Liam Flynn, Dan Charles. Also got Emmett O'Keefe on the line from Paddy Power. We're going to look at Saturday's Premier League games. Before we do, in the early part of the podcast, I dig you out, Emmett, that Paddy Power ducking 1 or 2 at the head of the betting in the outright for the Champions League, but Paddy Power, top price Liverpool to win the Premier League. You don't see them fetching in the Citizens.
No, we've City rated slightly shorter than their market price, and just although Liverpool have played a little bit better lately, it's just City's depth of squad I think is telling at this stage of the season, and as considering Liverpool are still in the Champions League, that's still a big advantage to City, as we'll see this weekend when their second or third choice team includes the likes of Jesus, Mahrez and Phil Foden.
Yeah, pretty lively second string there. So if you do want to back Liverpool, Paddy Power is the firm for you. Right, I'll stay with you then, Emmett, and we'll whiz through the 3 p.m. kickoffs. First up, we got Bournemouth at home to Newcastle.
So with Bournemouth evens, the draw 23-10 and Newcastle 5-2. I think we saw last week the difference that Callum Wilson made to Bournemouth with his finishing and link-up play. And he's definitely a big improvement from Josh King. But I think they're still possibly a little short here. I saw a tweet there during the week from Daniel Story, the journalist, that Newcastle are 4th in the league on the league table since January 12th, and the performances Mead has getting out of them are mighty impressive. I think Bournemouth just look a little short to me, so I'd expect Newcastle to get plenty of chances on the break with Almiron, Rondon and an inform Jose Perez. So Newcastle draw no bet at 7-4 for me.
Yeah, Rafa certainly working his magic yet again. Dan, how do we see this one?
I've got the same bet. Newcastle draw no bet, 7-4. I do respect the fact that key players have come back for Bournemouth recently. David Brooks and Callum Wilson, obviously they've been missing them, and that is a big boost for them coming back. But as has been mentioned, really, Newcastle, since the turn of the year, they've picked up 16 points. Bournemouth have taken 11, and that's not really being reflected in the betting here. And also, I'll just give a mention, their away record against the non-Big Six. They've won 2, drawn 6, and lost 1. That's a pretty, a solid away record against the teams that are not the big hitters. Could have even turned, maybe the odd one of those draws into a win. They were winning at Wolves deservedly before conceding really late on. So I just think they're a shade overpriced here, Newcastle. Draw no bet.
Yeah, and London clubs as well. Got a dreadful record against the London clubs on the road. What about yourself, Liam?
I'm actually going for Bournemouth in this one. I think Newcastle, they're very, very strong at home, and I think that's where Rafa Benitez looked probably at the start of the season. I think that's where we can get most of our points. But 7 of their 9 league wins this season have come at home, only 2 on the road, and they don't travel particularly well. As we said, we've mentioned Bournemouth. I think they're a completely different team with Callum Wilson in there. He just gives them something different. He's got so much pace that I think he can expose that Newcastle backline. His absence really did show last month, and I think that, looking at Bournemouth's recent results, the Manchester City result was an anomalous one. I think you can rule that out. They did keep them at bay, but obviously they did, concede a lot of shots in that match. But Eddie Howe set up differently. Generally at home, they do play and they operate on the front foot. We saw them score 4 against Chelsea, twice against West Ham, 3 against Watford. Fairly robust defensive sides, and they're putting those goals past them at home, and I think they can do the same against Newcastle.
Okay, 2 votes for Newcastle, 1 for Bournemouth. Right, we'll move on then, Emmett, to Burnley at home to Leicester, please.
So Burnley 2-1, the draw 9-4, and Leicester 11-8. It's interesting, since Brendan Rodgers came in, Leicester have definitely been going off shorter prices than they did under Claude Puel, and they were very impressive last week against Fulham. Puel was fairly reluctant to play James Maddison in a midfield 3, but Rodgers did that it was Tielemans, Ndidi and Maddison in the midfield 3, and they looked very, very good going forward, and I expect them to be even more potent in attack than they were under Puel. The bet I like in this game is over 2.5 goals at 11-10. Burnley's defence, I think, is vulnerable against pace, and Leicester have plenty of that with Vardy, maybe Damari Gray, Harvey Barnes, etc. in the counter attack. I think Burnley will go for the win. But despite that, I think Leicester haven't been great defensively. Johnny Evans possibly a little bit past his best, and if Wes Morgan-May is played as part of a back 3, I think he's definitely over the hill as well. So I like over 2.5 goals here.
Okay, Dan, Brendan Rodgers starting to work a bit of magic with this?
He is. I was at I watched Watford's home game, so I was at his first game in charge, and although they lost 2-1, I was really impressed with the way Leicester played. Dominated possession and just looked a good side. Just caught on the wrong margins on the day, and then I wasn't surprised they then went and won 3-1 against Fulham. Well, I think Fulham have picked up a little bit as well under Scott Parker, so I think that was a strong response there from Leicester. And Jamie Vardy's the one. I think he's really picked up since there was the talk about him not getting on so well with Puel, and he was left out occasionally, wasn't he? And he's just got his goal at Watford after he had a real horrible collision with Ben Foster, if you remember, in the game. Responded, got his goal, and then 2 goals and an assist as well in the game against Fulham. Tielemans, I agree, looks playing better as well. Maddison as well playing better under the new manager. And Burnley, I just think they're not convincing at the moment. Since they beat Spurs, 3 defeats, they're only 2 points now above the relegation zone, and they've got a pretty tough run in as well. The last 4 games there's some real big matches in there for them, so they're under pressure to get the points soon. I don't think they'll get any here. I think Leicester to win for me.
Can they go down, Burnley?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if Cardiff are going to pick up a few wins, Burnley I think are the most vulnerable.
Right, we'll get a price off Emmett while we hear Liam's views on this one.
Yeah, I'm going for Leicester as well. I think, like Dan said, obviously they've got these are the games that they need to start to win, because they've got a very difficult run towards the end of the season, but I can't see them. 3 successive defeats for Burnley. They're right in that relegation mix. I mean, we can ignore the Liverpool loss, but for me the defeat at home to Crystal Palace was quite a concern. Most notably the fullbacks, Bardsley and Taylor. I think they looked out of their depth, struggling with the pace that Palace put on them, and that's exactly the kind of threat that they're going to face when they come up against Leicester. We know Leicester operate with that 4-3-3, and as we said, they've been absolutely revitalised under Brendan Rodgers. I know we're only 2 games in to his tenure, but I thought they were unlucky against Watford as well. Lost out to a late goal there. They pretty much controlled most of that game for me, and then they were dominant in that 3-1 win over Fulham. I mean, say what you want about that, it is Fulham, but it's nonetheless 3 points, and I think they can go and get the win at Turf Moor.
Indeed, looking a better side. Leicester, have you got a price for Burnley to go down, Emmett?
Yeah, we're currently 4-1 with Burnley.
4-1.
Yeah.
Dan's nodding. You like that, Dan?
Yeah, that sounds shade overpriced. Don't forget the huge game as well. Burnley have got to play Cardiff at Turf Moor, in a couple of weeks. So that could be a massive
game.
Yeah.
Give us a quick show then on the relegation odds, Emmett, while you've got that up.
Sure, we're Cardiff 1-3, Burnley 4-1, Southampton 16-1, Brighton 22s, and Palace 40s.
Okay, there you go, 4-1. Dan liking that one. Right, let's move on then to the mighty West Ham at home. Well, featuring England's Declan Rice as well, at home to Huddersfield. Emmett, how'd you see this one? And give us a show.
We've West Ham 8-15, the draw 11-4, and Huddersfield 11-2. It's pretty worrying how comfortably West Ham were beaten by Cardiff last week, and they've taken big drifts in the market in recent matches, but again, it's not ideal. I could definitely see them making a couple of changes from last week, with probably Arnautovic coming in for Chicharito up front and Balbuena coming in for Ogbonna at centre half. Ogbonna really struggled last week, and those changes pretty should strengthen them. I'm not confident about taking short prices about West Ham, given how they played the last few games. But again, it's hard to have much confidence in Huddersfield either. The way I'd look at it here would be West Ham to win to 0. Huddersfield haven't scored in their last 6 away games, losing 5 of them. So I think 7-5 is a reasonable better.
Yeah, it seems really skinny, that West Ham price, Dan.
Yeah. I still. It's as if I've been reading Emmett's notes. Really, I've got the same bet. West Ham to win to 0 at 7-5. As he said, I don't think after that they were so awful at Cardiff that you can really put them in, at 8-15 and say that's a great bet. But conversely, can you really see Huddersfield getting a result here? West Ham are a lot stronger at home. They've 6 unbeaten at home in that run. They beat Arsenal 1-0, 1-1 against Liverpool where they played really well. Huddersfield away from home, well, not just away from home, where home or away, they're just on an awful run. 15 goals all season, scored 2 goals in the last 10. They were both injury time goals, so their threat up front is virtually non-existent. I don't think they'll score here. West Ham win to 0.
Yeah, I think that skinny price is more to do with Huddersfield than West Ham in truth. Right, how do we see this one, Liam?
I'm going West Ham -1. I think, Dan had the same stat as me there. Unbeaten in the last 6 at home in all competitions, games against Arsenal and Liverpool. They've actually scored at least twice in 4 of those games as well. For me, Huddersfield, they just look like they've given up. They're so poor up top. I think it took until just a couple of days into 2019 for first time a striker had scored for them this season. Fired blanks in 8 of their last 10 games, and I think the appointment of Jan Siver in earlier this year and the signing of Colin Grant in January as well, I think they were both moves kind of geared towards preparing for the Championship next season. So I think they've almost accepted their fate. Can't see them putting up much of a fight, and West Ham are a completely different side at home.
Yeah, let's hope they're not on that beach just yet. Right, let's move on to Sunday's games then, both televised. First one up, Fulham at home to Liverpool, 2:15 kick-off. Emmett, and give us some prices, please.
So we've Fulham at 10-1, the draw 5-1, and Liverpool 2-9. I think we'll probably see some changes from Liverpool here from midweek. Alan Lallana was excellent last week against Burnley, and I expect him to start here. It's probably, I think, bringing him in instead of one of the midfield 3 will give them a bit more link play and attack. And if Fulham sit deep, I think he could make a difference here. As Dan mentioned earlier, Fulham have definitely improved under Scott Parker. I thought they played very well against Chelsea in the first game, and they could have nicked a draw at the end. And even though they were well beaten by Leicester, as has been mentioned, I think Leicester are much improved under Rodgers, and that's not necessarily any disgrace. The bet I'd look at here would be Mane to score first at 9-2 each way if you can get it. I would say he's obviously in brilliant form at the moment, and I think he should be closer to Mohamed Salah's price. And with Leicester with Liverpool expected to beat Fulham comfortably, there's some value in the place part there as well. Dan, 10-1 Fulham. Interested?
Yeah. Look, every team's got their price, haven't they? I agree with Emmett. I think Fulham are improving performance-wise, obviously not results-wise, but they've had 2 tough games under Parker, fallen behind in both of them and equalised in both of them. Now that just shows a little bit of spirit. Has gone back into the side.
You'll get that with Scott Parker.
Exactly, and some reasonable football as well. I thought they played some good stuff in the Chelsea game. At Leicester, they've equalised, and I think Mitrovic then had a headed chance, didn't he, to put them in front, and then 2 late goals. Like they conceded against as we've mentioned, an improving Leicester side. So there is improvement. You still think this is going to be a task too big for them, though. I mean, Liverpool on a high after getting through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. A little bit of a concern with their domestic away form. 1 win in 6 domestic away games for Liverpool, but you can't really see Liverpool not winning. I would just go with the angle with his Fulham improvement under Parker, more positive play. Maybe they'll get a goal here, and I'll look at that angle and say Liverpool and both teams to score 8-5 looks a bet for me.
Emmett touched on it, the potential changes. What do you think, Dan? What do you think we might see?
Well, first, obviously, Fabinho will probably come in when he didn't start, did he, in the week? And I'm not sure he'll change any of the front 3 because they rely on him so much, and you can't really risk it. Being on earth, I don't know. Robertson, I don't think there'll be too many changes. The midfield's the area where he's got the depth. Maybe a Shaqiri or a Lallana to come in to give that little bit of more of an offensive spark there to midfield.
Same faces up top. How do we see this one, Liam?
Yeah, same tip. Liverpool, both teams to score. I think, depending on what happened last night, I was considering Fulham maybe on a double chance or something. But I think Liverpool will be buzzing, from having got through. I don't believe all of this kind of attitude of get knocked out of one tournament so you can focus on another. I think that winning becomes a habit, and that will definitely play into this game. Fulham, to be fair, under Scott Parker, I think they could have got something against Chelsea. Obviously, we had that late Kepa save from Mitrovic, and because obviously Scott, there's been a managerial switch. They're looking like destined for the drop. They can afford to play with a little bit more attacking freedom, which is why I think they could go and grab a goal, especially as it's at Craven Cottage. But I think Liverpool are just too strong. They have looked a little bit nervous away from Anfield, as we said, 1 win in the last 6 on the road, but I think they will just have too much quality even in a rotated side. So I think Liverpool and both teams to score.
Good stuff, 10-1 Fulham, but the lads think no chance. Right, let's move on. 4:30, Everton at home to Chelsea. I think this one could be a belter, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've Everton 11-4, the draw 5-2, and Chelsea 10-11. I have very little faith in Everton at the moment, to be honest. I don't trust their defence or their attack. They've conceded the most goals from set pieces in the league. And in attack, Richarlison's really tailed off after a promising start. And having Dominic Calvert-Lewin as your lone striker is not ideal for a team with top 7 ambitions anyway. And like last week, I think Jordan Pickford played as badly as I've seen a keeper play all year. I know Martin Stecklenburg's 36 and he's probably one of the least appealing backup keepers in the league. But even still, I think, Pickford was so bad that I think there's a possibility he might be dropped here. And with Chelsea, I think drawing at home to Wolves is no disgrace, and they have been playing better lately. And I definitely had them shorter 10 than 10-11. And given Everton's struggles at set pieces, I think Rudiger is worth chancing at 14-1 anytime. His expected goals is in the top 20 in the league, despite only scoring 1 league goal this year. But this is as good as a chance as he'll have all year, so that's worth the bet as well.
Dan, a beautiful little nugget there from Emmett that Everton fared the worst defensively from set pieces. So who are the aerial threats from Chelsea? Well,
you mentioned one there, Rudiger. Would be a threat there. I just even Higuain, not bad in the air, but I just feel that Chelsea here, I don't think it's such a bad price, 10-11. Everton's record against the big 6 is absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's quite a few years since they've had a win against any of them. What will really worry me is that I wasn't surprised they played well against Liverpool. They always seem to raise themselves for that game. They did it at Anfield and did again at Goodison. And then the game after, again, it's that lack of consistency of performance. You go to Newcastle, and I know they were 2 up, but they weren't actually playing that well even in the first half. Newcastle were kind of driving the game, and I think the shot stats are like 19-7 in Newcastle's favour, and that would really worry me if I was an Everton supporter. The fact the game after they've gone to Newcastle and played so poorly, as Emmett's mentioned, the doubts over Pickford are an issue as well. The centre backs, as defending set pieces, and Chelsea have looked refocused ever since that loss to Man United in the FA Cup. Everyone was talking about Sarri being on the edge and ready to go. They really responded well, even though they lost the Carabao Cup final. I thought they played very well in that game. Beat Spurs. Been unbeaten in 7 games now since that Man United game. I think they'll go and win here at Goodison.
Now, let's quick word on Higuain. You mentioned him there, aerial threat. How do you think he's settled in now, leading the line?
Okay, I think there's more to come from him. You look at throughout his career, I don't think we've seen his A game yet in a Chelsea shirt.
Okay, Liam, how do you see this one?
Again, I'm going Chelsea this time. I think it's disappointing because you looked at Everton in the Merseyside derby the other week. I thought they put in a really strong performance. They're so resilient. I think the atmosphere was probably the best it's been at Goodison Park for a long, long time. But that was more to do with the significance of a Merseyside derby, the fact they wanted to hinder Liverpool's title chances more than anything else. But then every other week, there's never that atmosphere at Goodison Park that there was in that game. I think completely imploded in that defeat to Newcastle. Were very poor. They lost to Wolves, Man City and Watford last month. Just serious defensive vulnerabilities exposed there against better sides. I mean, Chelsea, that you can't read too much into that win over Spurs because I think obviously both goals came from mistakes. Spurs were very, very poor on that occasion. They perhaps a little bit lucky to come away with a win against Fulham. As I said a moment ago, Fulham could have got something had Mitrovic made the most of that late chance. But in the last game against Wolves, obviously they only got a point from it, but they absolutely dominated against a very, very strong side. So, I'd fancy them away at Everton.
Okay, sounds like Sunday might be one for the Favs. Right, that crosses off the Premier League action. We're at the quarter-final stage in the FA Cup, and we'll tackle that after this break.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this week's Racing Post football postcast. We're now on to the FA Cup. We're at the quarter-final stage, 4 fixtures this weekend. We've got Emmett O'Keefe on the line from Paddy Power. And I suppose we was to start with an outright book, and the Manchester side's dominating the betting, I'm sure, Emmett.
Absolutely. We've Man City favoured at 4-5, United 7-2, Wolves 10-1, Watford 11s, Brighton 13-1, Palace 14-1, Millwall 50s and Swansea 90s.
And how's the book shaping up? We've got liabilities on both clubs at the top?
Yeah, pretty more so Man United, just because they drifted out to a bigger price early in the tournament, and obviously they've had big prices at kind of different times, because they were drawn away to Arsenal and then drawn away to Chelsea, then beat both those teams. Okay,
right, well let's dive straight in then. First game, Watford at home to Palace, all Premier League tie on Saturday. Give us a show from Paddy Power on that one, please, Emmett.
Yeah, so we've Watford 13-10, the draw 11-5, and Palace 2-1. Palace look a little short here, but I can understand why. They're a little bit like I mentioned with Arsenal earlier. Their home and away splits are stark. The Palace are 6th in the away league table and 19th at home. And obviously with the counter attack threat of Zaha, Townsend, and now Michy Batshuayi, you can see why they're such a threat away from home. Watford rested 7 players against City, so they're clearly targeting this game, and obviously they're definitely not going down this year. So I think this is a tournament they've a real chance in. I'd be interested to see if they stick with Aurelio Gomez, who's played in all the cup games so far. But I don't know if Dan agrees, because he'd see a lot more Watford than I would. I think Ben Foster's playing as well as I've seen him play in years, and so I think there's a bit of a difference there. I find this a pretty hard game to call, but I think Watford at 13-10 is a reasonable price. I'd pretty lean towards them.
12:15. This one kicks off. Dan, as you say,
yeah, I think
Gomez on Watford.
Gomez will probably play. Foster's been outstanding this season. Gomez, to be fair, has never let really Watford, never let Watford down with his performances, and he still looks quite an agile keeper.
How old is he? He's got to be north of 40.
38. I mean, Foster's 36.
Close.
There's only a 2-year gap between the two, but I think one of the big differences will be the kicking. Foster's kicking, and with a ball at his feet, is a lot better than Gomez's, so that'll be an issue. And he probably is a slightly better goalkeeper at this stage of both of their careers at the moment. But I think the match result prices are about right here. As Emmett's mentioned, Palace are a very dangerous away side with that firepower. I think they'll score, and that leads me on to the bet, which is both teams to score at shade of odds on. I think Watford will score as well. You've got Deulofeu, Deeney playing really well at the moment. They were the stars in that, scoring the Deulofeu hat-trick and Deeney twice in that win at Cardiff recently. Plenty of goals in the side. I just think, and Sacco's a big miss, isn't he, for Palace? Probably been their best central defender this season. He's out at the moment, so I just think it'll be an entertaining game. Goals at both ends, both teams to score.
Yeah, this one's got a feel of goals about it, Liam, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's probably the hardest game of the weekend to call. I think it could swing either way. Both are looking for responses. Watford losing to City, Palace obviously losing that big derby of Brighton. I would actually go for, I like the look of a Gerard Deulofeu first goal scorer bet here. I think it's quite a decent price about it, about 15-2. I think he had the most shots of any Watford player in their games against City and Leicester. Obviously had that hat-trick against Cardiff, scored against City. And as we said, Sacco out, he's he can use his pace and expose their defensive vulnerability there. So I quite like the look of him as a first goal scorer bet in a pretty tricky game to call.
Lovely, yeah, nice price. That one certainly be amongst it. Right, 5:20. Swansea are at home to Manchester City. Emmett.
Yeah, so it's Swansea 18-1, the draw 15-2, and Man City a short price of 1-9. It's as I mentioned earlier, the City's depth will be shown here with Jesus, Mahrez, and then Foden coming in, and maybe pretty Gundogan or David Silva playing as kind of the main player in central midfield.
Is that all?
Exactly. Like I said, I think Swansea have. I'm not sure they have it in them to really make life difficult for City. They aren't set up that well defensively. I can't see them holding City out. I can see this being just a comfortable 2 or 3-0 for City. The way I bet would be Gabriel Jesus first goal score each way. Again, there's value in the play spot because City are expected to hammer Swansea, and Jesus has been their main man in the cups all year, and his expected goal is very high, and he'll definitely get plenty of chances.
And what price is he?
You can get 7-2, 7-2 each way at the moment.
Okay, right. It's surely just going to smash Swansea, aren't they, Dan? It's just standard.
Yeah, I've got 3-0 City here, a correct score at 11-2. I just Swansea actually, they're a really nice team to watch. You watch them in the Championship, play some lovely passing football. Went and played at Norwich recently on the Friday night, pressed them and probably outpassed Norwich, who look like they're going to go up. But
that could be bad news.
But yeah, that's they still lost the game because they were lacking a bit of punch up front. And they didn't defend well enough, and you know when that's happening against Norwich, you really fear for what's going to happen against Manchester City. They've got their one way of playing Swansea, but they play their passing football. The pitch is pretty good there down at Liberty as well, so there's just nothing here that's going to mess City about, if you like. And as has been mentioned, their depth is really impressive. City, I just don't see them having any problems here at all. McBurney could be back for Swansea. Would give him a bit more of a cutting edge. He's missed the last 2 games with illness, but I don't think that's going to scare the life out of City.
Liam?
I keep waiting for the Man City burnout involved in so many competitions, but I can't see it coming. I'm going to go for sort of Man City to win both halves in this. I think you look at Swansea, like we said about the Norwich game, and against outplayed by West Brom. If they're losing to promotion contenders, then against Manchester City, you do worry about them, and they're not going to be able to. They're going to be unsettled. They're not going to be able to play their normal game. I think we look at Manchester City. They're a team that start very strongly. They've got more goals scored in the first 15 minutes than any other Premier League side this season. More first half goals this season, I believe, as well. But it's not just them starting well. They're ruthless. They kill teams off. They don't let up, as we saw that. They kept tearing through Rotherham and Burton. In cup games this season, we saw exactly the game same against Schalke. They would just kept going and going. So I think even if they have a lead early on, I can see them, just trying to push up the goal tally as the game goes on.
Yeah, I do like that. Quite relentless on Man City. What price is that, Emmett? City to win both halves.
We've got that's currently 10-11 actually.
10-11 feels like a big price, that one. Right, the third game on Saturday sees the other Manchester club in action away at Wolves. Wolves at home to Manchester United, Emmett.
Yes, we've Wolves 11-5, the draw 11-5, and Man United 6-5. I think this is a game and an atmosphere to really look forward to. The atmosphere should be rocking at Molineux for 7:55 kick-off. I think it's a hard game to call. The price is going to look close to right, but I would lead towards Man United here. Before the Arsenal game, United won their last 9 games away from home under Solskjaer. I think they're a pretty potent counter-attacking side, and that'll only be enhanced by Anthony Martial coming back into the side to support Lukaku and Rashford. I think this game might suit them because Wolves will dictate possession, and they do tend to commit numbers forward in attack. So I think United will have the opportunity to counter-attack on them. Against Willy Boley and Conor Cody, I think will struggle against United's pace.
Dan, do you see it the same way?
Not this one, no. I think I can see it being very tight, actually. I think Wolves, when they play the big teams, they don't play so high up the pitch a lot of the time, and they actually often, I've noticed, they look to counter on teams, and they do it quite well, hence their good record against the big sides. I think it'll be a little bit like a chess match here. Both teams are going to want to counter on each other. United's injuries are clearing up, so you've got to really respect them and how mentally strong they've been as well under Solskjaer, getting results when they've not always played that well. But I see this game going all the way. 2 strong sides. I think it could go head to extra time and possibly penalty. So I'll go for the 90-minute draw at 11-5.
Oh, right, okay. Liam?
I also think they're very difficult to separate, so for that reason I go for both teams to score in this one. I think Wolves obviously beat Liverpool in the Cup, have taken more points against top six opposition than any of the other 14 top flight sides. It'll be interesting to see how United will react to that defeat against Arsenal. Before that, they had 11 goals in their last 4 away matches. We knew how incredible their away record was going into that match at the Emirates. But Wolves play. They tend to play without fear against the bigger sides. Like Dan said, they tend to like to play on the counter, and that's how Man United will want to set up as well. But I think with the attacking talent on display, and so Wolves, Diogo Jota and Raul Jimenez, who's been in such great form of late, I think there could be goals in this one, and especially with Manchester United, if there's a bit of a reshuffle. So yeah, I'll go both teams to score.
Interesting. Emmett, I know you do sort of method of victory betting. Have you got a price for it to go, the distance, the penalties in this one?
Yeah, we do. So it's either team to win in extra time is 5-1. Either team to win on penalties is 9-2. Wolves in extra time 11-1. Man United in extra time 17-2. Wolves on both teams are 9-1 to win on penalties.
9-2 for it to go to penalties. Dan, you like that?
Yeah. I think it's a very good chance. Like I say, tight game. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Okay, right. Let's move on then to the final game in the FA Cup. The Sunday kickoff, 2 p.m. Millwall home to Brighton. And how do you see this one, Emmett? And do give us a show as well, please.
Sure. We've Millwall 5-2, the draw 11-5, and Brighton 11-10. I think it's pretty hard to be convinced by Brighton at the moment, despite a couple of recent wins. They somehow managed to score 2 goals against Palace last week, despite having 0.13 expected goals. So obviously there was some outstanding finishes from Glenn Murray and Anthony Knockaert in there. I think both sides here are pretty limited. I think it's hard to see this being an entertaining game. Millwall obviously won 2-0 during the week, but as our producer mentioned, the midfielder who scored those goals will be cup tied for this game, so which isn't ideal. I can see this being a fairly low scoring game with 0-0's a big runner, so I'd lean the draw here at 11-5.
Dan, how do we see it?
Yeah, I'll go the Premier League. I'll go Brighton here. Shade of odds against. I think that's a reasonable bet. They've had a free week going into it, which may be a bit of an advantage. Millwall had that big game at Birmingham on the Wednesday, won it 2-0, which was a huge win for them in the battle against relegation. But they may just reduce their energy reserves. Going into this game, they have been on a bad run before, 4 successive defeats, and I just think the way they beat Everton, it was all set pieces and balls into the box, and Everton caved in. And also there was a kind of a bad decision, wasn't there, in there from the referee as well with the handball. But I just think Brighton, against that, have got the perfect centre-back partnership. Lewis Dunk and Shane Duffy, both great in the air. I think they repel that Millwall threat, and I think they've got enough up front to do the damage. I mean, Glenn Murray is a fantastic technician despite his advancing years. I think maybe a bit of good forward play from him could decide it.
Yeah, I'm going Brighton as well. I think, frustration for Millwall fans is, having looked at the FA Cup, they could have thought they could have had a real crack at it this year, but then obviously they lost those 4 games before the Birmingham victory, and I think they're distracted perhaps somewhat by that battle against the drop in the Championship. So I think Brighton, I think that Premier League quality can show. That win over Crystal Palace, I think, was probably quite a surprise for a lot of people, but that will give them real confidence now that they feel they've pulled away from the drop zone. There are teams in the Premier League far more likely to go down than them, so they can give this competition a real crack. So I'd say, Brighton, shades of odds against. I'll go with them.
Brilliant stuff. Right, that about wraps it up. But of course, we saved the best till last. Let's get the guys' best bets this weekend.
This will not be beaten.
Well, Liam, you have the honour.
Well, I'm going to go with Bury to beat Cambridge this week. I think there's certainly been some vulnerability about Lincoln in the race for the title, and Bury are among the candidates I'd expect to go there and take advantage of that. I think they're about 2-1 for that now. Taken 30 points from a possible 36 in 2019 so far. Jay O'Shea is a fine performer throughout the course of the season, but now supported by a recent form of Nicky Maynard as well. They've got a great attacking threat going there. Cambridge themselves carry little threat going forward. They lost to 0 in games against Yeovil and Cheltenham, quite lowly in the table, and obviously a goalless draw against Crewe in midweek. So yeah, Bury to beat Cambridge.
Okay, good stuff, Dan.
I'm going to stick with League Two, and I'm going to go for Northampton to win away to Grimsby. It's taken a while at Northampton since Keith Curle come in to really improve them, but they are now on a great run. 4 successive wins. They're now 6 points from the playoffs, and they're making a real run to get into the playoffs. Grimsby are going the other way. They've had 3 losses in a row. Lost 4-1 at Tranmere in midweek. I think they'll lose to Northampton here. Okay,
right. That's Bury for Liam, Northampton for Dan. Complete the treble for us then, Emmett, and give us a price on the treble.
Absolutely. So I go Aston Villa from mine app. I think it's pretty well documented this year that Villa are a different team with Jack Grealish in the team. Their win percentage is 40% with them compared to 15% without, and his return has coincided with some of Villa's best form of the season. they hammered Stoke, won away to Forest, and then obviously won the derby last week at Birmingham. Middlesbrough kind of have struggled for form lately, and I expect Villa to really control the game in midfield. I could see Villa going off odds on here. I could see them even possibly winning comfortably. So Villa for me at 11 to 10.
Okay, and what does that make our treble then this weekend?
So the price in the treble is an appealing price of 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Good stuff. Right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your pearls of wisdom. Thank you for listening. Do check out, we've got some brilliant content coming out of Racing Post TV this week. Every day, reviews, previews for the Cheltenham Festival. And of course, look out for our racing, golf and football postcasts every week.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.